Recording stopped. Recording in progress.
Good morning, Chair.
Morning. Thank you, Mr. Pillay. I think you were on point, even on time. It's exactly 9:30. That's our starting time. Let me just welcome and greet all of you colleagues to our first meeting of the Portfolio Committee. Normal sir, if we have a quorum for us to start. I have an apology from Honorable Piri, who will join us late. And Honorable Yabo will be joining a plenary later on. Do you have any apologies? Are we ready to start?
Morning, Chairperson. Morning, honorable members. Morning, colleagues. Yes, Chairperson, we do have a quorum. We may start the meeting.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you very much. Again, let me greet all of you colleagues on this day, the 8th of September 2023. This is a first scheduled meeting of the committee since it was elected. You'd remember we elected and then we went for a full or a long recess. We initially would have planned to start our work with a proper strategic planning workshop for 2 days, and we'll speak about that later in terms of how it's going to unfold. We still want to do that. The point is that we want to start with that to just level the field, to start from a proper platform of the nature, the mandate, and our own attitude and the role that we're going to play as this committee, it being a new committee altogether. We're going to speak about that later on, but I do want to welcome all of you colleagues. And the time when we were set up and I was elected as a chair, not all members were ATC'd to be part of this committee. So we're going to, before we go to the actual agenda, let me firstly welcome all of you members. I would like to give you an opportunity, all of you, it being the first committee meeting, to introduce yourself. I see the minister is on the platform. I want to welcome her, and I would allow her to introduce herself and the team before we start the items that we've called this meeting for. This meeting is been called for specific items that we want to attend, even as we plan to have the strategic planning. The strategic planning is about us knowing what is happening there in that Department of Planning and Monitoring. Today is just an appetizer about 1 or 2 items. So can I then invite members who have been assigned to be part of this committee, and for me to give them the opportunity to introduce themselves. My name is Kubutile Richard Janji. I've been assigned the role of chairing this portfolio committee, and that was confirmed by the members of this committee when they elected me as a chair. So let me now invite other members of this committee. There's supposed to be 11 of us, and I would wish that they introduce themselves properly. I'm not going to go name by name. I'm going to allow you to do it yourself.
Chairperson, my name is Joe McGlua. I am also a member of this committee, and I am happy to serve on this committee. In the same breath, Chair, talking about the 2-day workshop, I also believe that there have been some delegation overseas pertaining on the how part and how this committee is going to deal with it. If it is also possible later on to explain to us the trip as well as with a possible report that we can also use on the 2 days. Thank you so much, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Maglu, for your introduction. Your points are noted. Thank you. Next member. As we do that, just make sure that you switch your camera on so that we can see you.
Greetings, Chair. Mzwanele Manyi here. Some of you might still be lingering on Jimmy. Just so you know that in my quest to decolonize, I have removed that name even from my ID. So
I was
if
just
you want,
about to ask that. I was about to ask that if it's still in the ID.
no, it's not. I paid 140 to Home Affairs, Chair, to get it removed. So if you want to annoy me, call me Jimmy. Then you know that you want to annoy me. Okay,
Thank you.
No, Chair, thank you for your welcoming remarks. I was really looking forward to the thread session so that we are all clear about also the rules of engagement, etc., etc. Yeah,
it's still coming. We have to do it. It's still coming, but we'll speak about it later in this meeting.
And then, Chairman, also I was looking forward to this very first meeting, but I have not very good news for myself. That because the rest of the other fighters, as you would know, they're busy with the workshop, so we're thinly spread. So I've been deployed to mini plenary, which starts at 10. So, but I just thought I must just give respect to this meeting and just be here for as long as I can. Then somewhere before 10, I'm going to jump off chair without notice because I'm sure you'll be in the middle of something. Just don't think I just disappeared and all of that. Yeah, but otherwise, I also want to greet everyone on the platform, some other people I haven't seen in a long time. My other colleagues there, Nkuna in particular, I see on the platform. So Chair, thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you, Honorable Manyi. You helped me with that name because I was going to call it, but when you say it's not in the ID, I won't call it. Thank you. Thank you. Next member.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Samantha Graham-Murray. I'm with the Democratic Alliance, and I'm very, very excited to be part of this portfolio. I think this is going to be the most interesting portfolio committee in Parliament, particularly as we get to oversee every other department. So I'm super excited that we finally starting and getting going, and because otherwise I have FOMO. I like to know what's going on everywhere. So this is the perfect portfolio for me to be on. So, and I'm looking forward to working with you, Chairperson. So I'm really excited for what lies ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Graham. Next member.
Good morning, Honorable Chairperson and Honorable members. My name is Brandon Pillay, member of the ANC in this committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Pillay. Next member.
Good morning, Chairperson. Good morning, other members of the committee. Let me open my camera. Yes. Thank you very much, Chair. My name is Mafuza Yabo. I'm a member of this committee deployed by the African National Congress. It's good to know and meet all of you, hoping that we'll work together to the betterment of our country, despite all party lines that we might have coming here. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Yabo. Next member.
Good morning, Chair. My name is Voyo Zongola. I'm a member of the committee representing ATM. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Zongola. I was going to ask about Umbani, but Ndiakbona. Next member. Are those all the members we have today? For now?
Yes, Chairperson.
All right. Thank you. Thank you. I'm now going to change gear and ask the minister. I don't know if the DM is here, and head DG, perhaps, and the team to introduce themselves. But just before I go to the minister, this is a point we're going to make in the strategy planning workshop, and we're still going to do. And it's a point that Honorable Mafuze Yabo just touched on. Given the nature of this committee, its importance in an oversight role, we do want to encourage, even as we start today, encourage members that when we are here, I expect only robust oversight engagement. I'd want, when we hear, we just exercise our role as an oversight body across all parties. I don't expect us to emphasize partisan issues. You will have that space in the house and play what you need to play. But it will be important that in this committee, the country comes first in the kind of things that we do, and can only do that if we unashamedly demonstrate the effectiveness of oversight as parliamentarians. And I've been part of committees that effectively do that. And I would wish that is continued even more in this committee, given its nature of it being transversal and cross-cutting on a number of issues. So you'll be given that space in this committee to do exactly that. And so don't pull back on those issues, but you can park your other political issues and do them in the sitting if you have to highlight more of a party or partisan issue. With that, I want to invite and welcome our Minister of Planning, Monitoring and Evaluation, Honorable Ramorupini Ramahupa, to introduce herself properly, her deputy and the team. And after doing that, Honorable Minister, we have identified 2 items that we want to speak about today. We had received documents from the department prior to this meeting. We're going to invite you, once you introduce yourself, make an overview thereafter. Whether you want your team to do the presentation, we'll give you that, and we'll indicate what time they need to take in doing that. And after those presentations, members will then come in and engage with the presentation, having seen them and or read them. So I now acknowledge the Honorable Minister.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson. My name is Marupini of the My name is Marupini Ramokgopa, and I'm the Minister of DPME, and I'm also the Chairperson of the NPC. It is for this reason that my team will consist of the Secretariat of NPC, which is Dr. Gifilwe Masiteng, as well as our DG in DPME, which is Dr. Robert Nkuna. We also have my special advisor, Tembile Yako, my chief of staff, Sipho Siakamela, and the parliamentary liaison officer of the deputy minister, Zandile Ngubeni. And we also have Vuima Endela, who's also from the office of the DG. And as you all know, that my deputy minister is Honorable Bingike Kana. Yesterday, she was in KZN. We are hoping that she'll be able to join us today. So that is the team. I'm not sure if you want to see them. I think if you do, they would then just introduce themselves individually. Thank you so much. Starting with Dr. Robert Nkuna, who's the DG, and the Secretariat, Dr. Kifilwe Masiteng. Thank you.
Good morning, Chairperson, members of the committee, Minister. As has been indicated, my name is Robert Nkuna. I'm the Director General of the department. And when we commence with the presentation, I am going to also introduce other colleagues so that the committee can also know who is who in the department. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you.
Dr. Masiteng.
Good morning, Chair, Honorable members. Good morning, Minister and DG. My name is Kifilwe Masiteng. I am the Secretary of the National Planning Commission in DPME in the Presidency. Thank you.
Thank you. Back over to you, Minister.
I think we can follow with the advisor, the Chief of Staff, and the PLO. And then we can now be done so that you can just know who they are, so that you know who we are working with.
That's in order.
Good morning, Chair, members of the committee. My name is Tembile Yako, the advisor to the Minister. Thanks, Chair.
Good morning, Honorable Chair. Good morning, honorable members. My name is Sipho Siakamela, Chief of Staff in the Office of the Minister.
Ms. Ngubeni.
Good morning, honorable members and honorable chair. My name is Andile Ngubeni. Apologies for not showing my face. I'm just having some issues with my device at the moment.
And I think the last one is Vui Mayandela. I guess you'll be introduced when maybe the DG takes over. So this is the team that we are here with. There's also some support staff from the office of the DG and from the department itself. The DG will then now introduce them when we're doing the presentation, because some of them will be assisting us in doing the presentation. So that's the team from our side. Honorable Chairperson, thank you.
You are welcome to make any opening remarks before you hand over to the DG, Minister, if you want to do that.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson, and thank you very much to the members of the House and the members of this portfolio committee in particular. And we're really grateful that you have given us an opportunity today to come and account, of course, on what we do, most especially in the frontline services delivery, as well as the support that we give when we're doing our frontline. And this will be done, obviously, for the financial year of 2023 or 2022 and 2023, the first quarter and the second quarter of 2023-2024 financial years, respectively. We're also going to be giving a presentation that will be speaking about the Presidential Hotline Performance, so that we can just then now be able to account on what we have already been able to do, what we are planning to do. We will also highlight the challenges that we are facing and the stumbling blocks that we believe that with your assistance and or maybe if we even can be able to do better, would be able to do away with. In the main, we have been able to do our frontline monitoring, which is mainly something that we, or one of the delivery points, whereby we concentrate on making sure that we do the monitoring physically to be able, in most cases, to prepare for the imbizos that the president or the deputy president is doing, or the frontline monitoring that they would be doing to check on the projects that we would have been able to identify as government to say this is what we're doing. Most of those projects, of course, are the projects that have been identified or ran through the DDM, and they are champions, of course. But we also do frontline monitoring and support based on the current issues that are happening in the country, or the research that we would have made in different areas. Recently, or in since we have been put in place, we have concentrated more on the field of education, of health. We've also looked at special economic zones. We've also looked at the gender-based violence and femicide centers. We've also looked at a number of programs that were unfolding during the COVID-19 pandemic, which is still there, but of course, but especially mostly when it was still very much stronger. So those are some of the things that we looked at, not only them. So, but I'm just I'm mentioning that that's what we looked at in most cases. Of course, most of the time, we then now send our staff members, lack of a better way to say, to be the one to do the groundwork and the heavy lifting. And we as the principals would then now go later on even to prepare for our own principals. Yes, indeed, we sometimes do struggle precisely because ours is to go and do the monitoring, then be able to come up with diagnostic reports. Some of those reports would then now be reports that are diagnosing the problem, or maybe it will be diagnostic that then now tells us that we are doing well, but it will also be able to assist us to also come up with reports that would assist with the planning process of whatever it is that we need to do in different financial years. At times when we do give those reports, of course, we find that we may struggle to give reports, or we may be able to give the report to relevant institutions. However, when we then now do the monitoring of whether what we have said is being implemented, at times it doesn't get implemented. And we end up not necessarily having the teeth to bite to say that, but you should be able to do that, because we are not necessarily a department that have got enforcement mechanisms to in whatever it is that we would have diagnosed. However, things are getting better, precisely because at the current moment we are able to give different presentations to the cabinet, but we're also involved in ensuring that we do monitor the planning, the APPs of different departments. As you may know, everything else starts with the National Development Plan, then it goes down to the MTSF, then from then the APPs, then we then now come up with priorities that we believe would then now be able to move the needle as it relates to service delivery. Those priorities, of course, are identified by us through our outcome facilitators, then given to the president and the deputy president. Then we communicate with different departments, in particular the ministers. At the end of the day, that becomes then the performance agreement between the president and the ministers, monitored by us. So that's what we usually do. So also in the presidential hotline, the issues of service delivery challenges that we get, we do provide solutions, and we will then now get reports, diagnostic reports as well, that will then now be able to send to relevant institutions. We don't only, of course, deal with the issues of government, but we deal with whatever it is that we should be able to do, even if it's in private sector, but we don't get so much involved in that. We're trying to bring everybody together so that we then now have to start creating a platform whereby, as much as we are government and we need to monitor government, but we also have to make sure that the decisions of government and what the NDP seeks to achieve should also find expression with the private sector. It is for this reason that through the NPC, we are we are putting so much effort in making sure that we do active citizenry, and we do programs that would then now be able to give an enabling environment for business and private citizens to be able to play part in partnering with government in building a developmental state and a capable state to be able to intervene decisively to the issues that government needs to do. So that's what I can say at the moment. And I would then now ask the DG to take us through a detailed presentation based on what you have requested, the Frontline Service Delivery Monitoring Report, as well as the Presidential Hotline Performance. DG, you can go ahead, or let me give over back to the chairperson, of course, and you can then now direct us on how to move forward. Thank you, Honorable Chairperson.
Thank you, Honorable Minister, for that overview. That's your first overview you were making in this committee. There are going to be many more. Thank you for that. Maybe before we invite the DG to make a presentation so that I indicate how much time he has, can I just check with the members your preference or comfort? Do we allow him to make full presentation on both items and then thereafter you get into a discussion? Or do you want him to do presentation item by item? Can I get your indication, colleagues? I don't see the hands here. I must just check quickly. Honorable Graham? Okay, I must complete it, Graham Murray. It's going to be a long thing.
No, you can say Graham, because Pod refuses to add the Murray to the end of my name on the official documentation. So that's fine.
Thank you. No problem.
Chairperson, I'm just, what happens sometimes is if we do both of them at the same time, then the question session becomes unbelievably long. But if we do them separately, then sometimes we run out of time on the second one. So I think maybe if you're prepared to limit each one to say an hour, then we should be okay then I would prefer maybe that we do one and one and then do questions after each one so it's fresh in our minds.
Okay. Thank you, Honorable Graham. Is there any other view or is there support for that? So that it's not my meeting and Honorable Graham. Any other member? No view. Okay. Then if there's no other indication, colleagues, because I don't see any other hand, we're going to ask, okay, Honorable Yabo.
Thank you very much, Chair. I will second the view presented by Graham Murray, so that we are able to process this matter in a manner befitting of a meeting. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Yabo. I think therefore let's go that way, and with that, DG, the report is taken as read, would have been sent to us, and when we go to the strategic workshop, these are some of the things that we're going to put forward. The essence of what we want to do, we want to have more time as members of the committee to have discussion and not give more time for presentation and then we just sit there and listen on something that we ourselves have read. And you'll see that even when we go to annual report, we want to take a different approach. Committee meetings are spaces where department comes to account, and the members must have ample time to engage in that. So when I was a researcher and a trainer, I was taught one thing, that if you can't put across your message in 15 minutes, then you don't have a message. But I won't take you to 15 minutes. So I will give you, for starters, 25 minutes to make this first presentation, and then we're going to get into a discussion, and then we'll go to the next one. So in other words, you've sent a presentation to us. Don't repeat sentence by sentence. Talk to it, but in a way that doesn't leave out the important issues. Over to you.
Okay. Thanks, Chairperson. Once again, honorable members, Minister and Secretary of the National Planning Commission and other colleagues on call. for this opportunity. Now, Chair, speaking on behalf of the administrative team, I must say that this is Christmas Day. We know that it's not going to be easy for us because we do many things. We monitor practically everything in South Africa. You know, wherever you go and say you work for DPME, you'll be asked questions. People will even ask questions about what is happening in their home states and in their villages everywhere. So the scope is quite wide, you know, and I think in our engagement with yourselves in the strategic planning and other platforms, we will be able to work together in terms of defining the scope. And the minister has been raising this issue that she doesn't want us to be all over the place because otherwise we are going to achieve nothing, you know, as a DPMA. So really speaking on behalf of the administrative team, we are looking forward to that engagement. And Chair, because I suppose we'll be invited to that meeting, I will just introduce colleagues without asking them to switch on their videos so that we can save on time. It's very important to do that. First, Chair, let me apologize for the DDGs who are not here because the understanding is that whenever we come here with the minister, we must have all the management team always in attendance. So I wish to apologize that we have 5 DDGs in the department and only 1 available today. So I wish to apologize for the others as follows. DDG Godfrey Mashamba, who's responsible for evaluations, is leading a team that is on a retreat to write the 30-year review. So they are offsite, they've retreated to some place so that they can spend time working on the report, you know, because we need to expedite its finalization so that the country can also have an opportunity to engage on it and discuss the report. So that's why it's not here. DDG Annette Grisel, who's responsible for planning coordination, is also not here. She is currently in Durban attending the BRICS meeting on disaster management, representing the department. I also attended that meeting yesterday, wherein I reported on behalf of South Africa because the department, besides doing monitoring, we have also been very involved in some of the interventions to deal with disaster management challenges in South Africa. DDG Gugu Timani is on a family leave, and acting DDG Tom Kos, who's responsible for corporate services, is also attending to some administrative issues. With me very quickly here, we have Clement Madali, who's responsible for strategic planning in the department, Dr. Spisong Ngobo, who's coordinating the DGO, and I nearly forgot, we have 1 DDG, as I've indicated, DDG Mahomo Chatsinde, who is responsible for sector monitoring, and 2 colleagues who are going to be assisting me with the presentation, Tawoma Kosani, who is the Chief Director for Frontline Monitoring Services, and Melisizwe Blakey as a Director for the Presidential Hotline. So, Chair, I've heard you that I don't have to read word for word, so I'm going to take the first presentation and ask Melisizwe to deal with the presentation on the Presidential Hotline. Let me be assisted a secretariat so that I can get up to speed with the presentation. Chair, I have requested secretariat to assist me with the first presentation. Okay, thank you. Let's go to the second slide. The second slide on the content, table of content. Second slide, please. Okay, Chair, members, this is the overview of our presentation. So we are going to talk about an overview of the DPME monitoring tools, then move on to talk about frontline monitoring and support for 2022-2023, frontline monitoring and support for Q1 and 2 of the current financial year. And we are going to conclude by talking about the planned monitoring activities for the remaining 2 quarters of the current financial year. Next slide. Secretary, please, second slide.
It's going to eat into your time a lot. I don't know why it's taking long to do this. Do we have a challenge, colleagues? DG?
Okay, I'm being assisted by Secretariat. So I don't know what's happening on the other end.
Are they able to give you share screen issue so that you drive it your own?
Okay, we'll try that. Maybe let me make an attempt with what I see, and if there are challenges, I'll ask one of our colleagues, Taboma Kosani, to do this for me as I'm using a handheld device. Tabo, please assist.
Yes, DG, I will. The host needs to allow me. At the moment, it's not allowing me, DG.
Okay, Secretariat will assist you so that we can go through
Recording
the presentation.
stopped.
Honorable Yabo, is that an old hand? I see your hand is up. Is that an old hand?
It's an old hand, Chair. My apologies.
Okay. Thank you. All right, DG, are you winning?
Yes, we're winning, Chair. Now it's being projected from our side. Let's go to slide number 3. Okay, Chair, on this slide is about the mandate of the department. Now, the Department for Planning, Monitoring and Evaluation, as the name says it all, it also translates to the mandate of the department. So one is the planning work that we do. Let me indicate that in this particular area, that's where we translate the National Development Plan into the medium-term strategic framework, the MTSF, which is the 5-year program of government. Now, in addition, this part of our work, and there is a branch for this purpose, we also analyze all annual performance plans of departments, national departments and provincial departments amounting to around 90 entities. So on annual basis, we have to analyze the draft APPs of departments at the national and provincial level and some entities. Then we also do evaluations. In this area, we identify interventions or programs of government that require in-depth assessment. At the present moment in this area, Chair, I need to indicate that we have been focusing more on the economic recovery. So we have undertaken a deep dive evaluation of the economic recovery. So you will not see it in the report that we are going to be presenting, and I'll explain why that's not included here. We have also done some evaluations on business incentives of government because we believe that for economic recovery to happen, we need adequate incentives to accompany some of the key interventions. So we have not included this report in this presentation. And as I've said, I'll explain why. Now, under monitoring, here we do two main activities. One is monitoring or tracking the implementation of the medium-term strategic framework. This is a very comprehensive report. On annual basis, we present two massive reports to Cabinet and also to the DG clusters and FOSAT. So this area of monitoring will be divided in the main into two areas. One is what I've referred to as tracking the implementation of the MTSF, which is quite massive, because we have to account for each and every target and indicators of implementation by government departments. But at the same time, we have what we call frontline monitoring. And in our lingo, when we talk about frontline monitoring, we refer only to those activities that involve us going on site. So not everything that we do is necessarily a frontline, to an extent that when you look at the report that we are going to be presenting to you, just focuses on aspects of our activities that involve on-site visitation and assessment. Now, there are reports that are generated through other mechanisms, research, triangulation, thick description, and so on. So what we are presenting today does not represent the totality of the work of the department. It's just that we understand frontline monitoring to be limited only to those interventions that have involved some site visit by the department. Also, we attempt at interventions. Chairperson, this is not our very strong point, considering the fact that we are a small department, but we do, to an extent, it is possible to assist with some interventions where there are challenges. And most of the time, our interventions focus on facilitation. We can only facilitate so that we can take over and implement what departments are supposed to implement. So we do attempt at some interventions, and I will give some examples as I run through the presentation. Next. Now, Chair, I've already given an overview of what we do as a department, that we have different monitoring tools. One involves us going through or tracking the implementation of all APPs, which then helps us to assess whether we are meeting the requirements of the medium-term strategic framework and indeed the objectives of the National Development Plan. We do make some interventions, our own monitoring of local government, in addition to what the Department of Cooperative Governance does. We are the department responsible for the management of the performance agreements of ministers and HODs. You know, quite a lot of work that we do to make sure that DGs are assessed. And I can indicate that currently we are up to date in terms of the assessment of the Directors General. There may be areas of improvement that we're considering together with the Department of Public Service and Administration. Frontline service delivery monitoring, I've indicated how we understand it, that not everything at DPME constitute a frontline service delivery monitoring. So it's just a limited kind of work. Otherwise, there are many other things that we do. The Presidential Hotline and Operation Pakisa is an intervention that allows us to facilitate and ensure that stakeholders in a particular sector are engaged in terms of what government seeks to do, because that also allows us to unlock gridlocks and log jams that we always encounter. We are sometimes invited to MINMAX, where we participate and provide insights when the ministers meet with the MECs in the province. We value that very well. And now that we have our own minister, I think that will be enhanced so that we can also use that platform to assist with bringing gridlocks as they arise. Next. Now, Chair, having indicated that a frontline to us means just a set of activities and not everything,
I'll just provide an overview of some of the areas that we have selected. The minister has already mentioned the broad areas that we picked in the reporting period. One is COVID-19 vaccination rollout monitoring. We've done a lot of work in this area so that we can also document what actually happens so that future generations can learn from the current experiences. So as you can see, there are numbers indicated there of the sites that we have visited. On our own, we produced 2 COVID-19 monitoring reports, quite detailed reports. Some involved academics who also participated in writing those reports. The ideal clinic monitoring is a very important piece of the work that we do, as it also links to preparations for the national health insurance. A lot of work was done prior COVID, but we also realized that because of the devastation of COVID, it could be that we need to go back to basics and do more work in this particular area. So this is an ongoing activity, Chair, that we are involved in as a DPME. On flood disaster monitoring, I must indicate that this took much more than just monitoring. We were directly involved. At some point, we're no longer a monitoring department and we're to play a very serious coordination role. We had to come to KZN and assisted with the data management for the management of the disaster in that province. In Dielpan in the Northwest, we went also beyond just being a monitoring department. We also assisted with troubleshooting to an extent that at some point we invited even the University of Northwest to assist because there were challenges and trust deficit amongst some of the stakeholders. We have done the same in the Eastern Cape in the last disaster management period. GBV monitoring, we also support the work of the Department of Women, Youth, and People with Disabilities. We are doing a lot of work in support of that particular department, but also in making sure that in the APPs of departments, we include this important area. But then, as indicated here, we have also done our own work, even outside of what that department does, so that we can augment their work in this particular area. And the results are there. We can share some details on this and the other areas that I'm speaking on. Let's go to the next one. Then on economic recovery, Chairperson, I've already indicated that through our evaluation team, we've done a deep dive assessment of the implementation of the ERRP, supported by the DBSA, the bank. They provided us with their economists who came to assist us in doing the design evaluation. And we'll be undertaking further evaluations, and after engagement with the minister, obviously will end up in cabinet so that we can provide cabinet with a coherent report on what we see as we evaluate this area. So there are many issues involved in this particular area of economic recovery, but what is indicated here is that we have also been paying attention to the industrial parks, which are mainly in the homelands. We can provide a detailed report also in this particular area. Now, previously in the homelands, as you know, Chair, there were industrial parks. You'll find Sishiho, Shahandima, Putatichaba, and others. And what we're trying to do is to use this as nodes to rejuvenate the economies of those areas. And we've made quite a number of recommendations on this. We've also been paying attention to special economic zones. We are worried that they are not moving as they should be. One of the sites that we've been visiting and will be visiting in the next 2 weeks again is the Tubatse SEZ in Limpopo, where there are some challenges that we recognized in our last visit. There are challenges in Nkomazi in Mpumalanga. Things are not moving as they should be. So we are paying attention to that. On the DDM, what we are doing, we have been supporting our own principals, our immediate principals. And as you know, Chair, they have changed. What we're trying to do here is to have a model that we can replicate elsewhere so that we can show that as DPME, we can run a coherent DDM. We know that there are challenges everywhere due to poor participation of national departments. Safe School Initiative monitoring, we do this. We know that there is a challenge of infrastructure and sanitation in schools, so we have been paying attention to this. We have made recommendations to Cabinet and directly to the department concerned, that is the Department of Basic Education. Kaelija informal settlements, we are concerned about this area, and at this point in time, one can indicate that there is some progress as land transfer from the province to the city has happened. The relocation plan is currently being developed, so we'll continue to focus on this area until we see some conclusion to it. Next is slide. Okay, go back. Yes, on this one, Chair, very quickly, as you know, that there is an arrangement between SASSA and SAPO on the payment of social grants. Now, this is a massive undertaking as we pay around 17 million people on monthly basis. Fair enough, not everyone is paid through the SAPO process. Some get their money through the commercial banks, so others go to the post bank to get paid. But there are still people who receive their social grants through the traditional pay points. And although they've dwindled over the years, DPME has been paying attention to that area. And we discover that there are still challenges in that the quality of service is not where it's supposed to be. So even with the numbers going down, we have not been where we are supposed to be. And we've also observed the challenges facing the post bank in the payment of social grants, in that in some areas the post bank will go and pay people, find that the number has decreased quite considerably. So from, say, 10,000 people were paid in a particular area, now we have less than 5,000 people. So it's no longer making business sense for the post bank, and we've made very detailed interventions on how that can be resolved. So we will come back here with a report, a detailed report, because this is one of those areas that face the people directly. So we'll report in great detail, Chairperson. Let's move to the next one. The issue of TVET, Chair, has been receiving our attention as a DPME. Overall, our expectation is that we should be increasing more and more people going to TVET colleges than universities. But we still have a situation whereby most young people prefer universities irrespective of what they do compared to TVET. So this is a very big deal for us when it comes to a new skills dispensation in South Africa. So we have been going to TVETs to understand why is it that people still prefer universities. Well, there may be an element of marketing that we need to do, but this is one of our priorities. We believe that going into the next administration, the 7th administration, we need to really shift the tide and get people to the TVET environment, community colleges, and so on, so that we can impart real skills that help people to participate directly in the economy. On correctional services, initially our focus in this area was the parole system, that we need to do an evaluation of the parole system, which is underway. But we've also been checking the infrastructure, and we are concerned that in the areas that we've visited, there's a lot that needs to be done. Overcrowding is proving to be a very big challenge. And we've shared this report with the JCPS cluster so that we can attend to this. Now, Chair, from our observations as people who sit in the Budget Committee of Government, we also realize that this is not currently being prioritized, the infrastructure and correctional services. We've made our own inputs even in Cabinet on what can be done. Broadly, in terms of funding for the entire justice JCPS system, a lot of money recently has gone to SAPS. We welcome that, but we have been suggesting that we need to equally allocate resources to the value chain so that we see the criminal justice system as a value chain. We have also done monitoring on the 10,111. This is a very big area of concern because South Africans, when they call 10,111, they struggle. Sometimes the calls are dropped. Sometimes they are not answered at all because of dwindled capacity in that space. So this is a matter that even the minister is looking into, so that we can intervene and see what can be done. We know that there are financial implications that will go through these kind of things. We have also been to old age homes and children's homes to do monitoring, and we believe that there may be in need for improvement. On local government, Chair, I've already indicated that we do our own monitoring. So while DCOG is the frontline department that leads in terms of monitoring, we also do our own monitoring. We have our own tool that helps us to monitor basic services in the selected municipalities. And this allows us to compare our own findings and those of cooperative governance, which is very important for us so that we can see how the two compare. And we have been sending reports on what improvements are required. On the integrated public transport network, we are concerned about this area that the BRTs have not worked as they should have. We see this in Rustenburg, where 3.3 billion has been spent, but there is still no bus in the street. We are asking for serious political intervention so that we can get the buses on the street. So even the stations have not been completed. So what has happened here, Chair, is that a lot of money was spent on digging on the roads and then putting concrete slabs and then closing it back to tar. But so when you go there, you'll not see what I'm talking about, where the money went to. But the long and short of it is that we are focusing on interventions that will help us ensure that there are buses as a matter of a great agency. The Department of Transport agree with us on this. We also visited in Northwest to see this innovation that was introduced in one municipality of donkey carts, which were given to communities. And we found that to an extent it's assisting, but the way it was managed and communicated in public was a very big challenge. So we had to go and look at that and see if it's something that's really working next. Then ECD, we know the transfer has taken place from the Department of Social Development to the Department of Education, Basic Education. We are following up on this, particularly concerned about some quality issues. So there is a detailed report that we can share with the committee, as this also deals with the people. At the bottom there is the Public Service Week. What we normally do, we go out as the EXCO DPME to work in a particular area. But what is important about this is that last year we took the DGs of the different departments and deployed them across the different DDMs so that DGs can see for themselves and also help troubleshoot some of the problems on the ground. So we'll attempt to do this together with DPSA this time around. Next. I mentioned in part what we're doing in municipalities. We have been to Zobotla municipality, a very troubled municipality that has gone through many interventions over the years, but is still not turning around. And currently there are challenges arising out of political contestations in that space. Honorable members will remember having read a media report about Clover leaving that area to resettle somewhere. So we have been there. We have seen quite a number of challenges. One of the concerns that we've been trying to assist with is that the policies that should be enabling the municipality to bill for services was not in place the last time we went there 2 months ago, because it was difficult for council to see it. So we end up with a situation whereby the municipality can't bill, and it's a very troubled municipality. But also in this municipality, Chair, we also realize the poor coordination of interventions involving the province, cooperative governance, and national treasury, and we are trying to assist in that. And the same situation in Mangaung, that I recently went to Mangaung with the team and announced, and we find that there were serious challenges. And after my engagement with the minister on what can be what that we can do, the suggestion was that we need to come with some guidelines on
progress.
how we can intervene, how best to coordinate interventions. So you have a situation whereby DCOG will go in first, in fact, the province first, DCOG, and then treasury. And sometimes you find the three of them being involved at the same time, one way or another. So that is another challenge in this particular area. So, Chair, as I round up, let's go to the next one. So, as I conclude, Chair.
Yes, that must be conclusion.
Is indeed conclusion, Chair. I'll just pick on one issue here, that we are monitoring the implementation of the presidential priorities, the agreements that the president has signed with the ministers, so with the practical all the ministers. So that is going to be our priority area of focus. And when we come here, I think is one area that we'll need to share with you. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, DG Nkuna. I would have given you a few extra minutes because of the glitch that was there. But just as a standard, so that this is our first meeting, you get used to this. The 25 minutes is an important measure. Your minister, Minister Ramokgopa, when she delivers the budget vote, ministers get given 20 to 25 minutes to talk about their whole department and present that to the nation. And so the DGs and everybody else have got to fit within that standard. I'm not going to give you anything more than that. So find yourself to plan and do that. So we're going to be working well together in that sense. Honorable members, there's the presentation. I now want to invite you to raise, having read this submission, the presentation, the issues that you have picked up, that you want either clarity on, questions you want, or whatever homework you want to be done by this department on any of the issues that would have been presented to us. It is now that opportunity, and I now recognize the following hands: Honorable Graham, to be followed by Honorable Yabo, followed by Honorable Meglu. In that order. Honorable Graham?
Chairperson, I don't think you saw my hand.
Yeah, it's actually the second hand. I called you Yabo. That's Honorable Pillay. My apology, Honorable Brennan Pillay.
Thank you,
I didn't
Chair.
see your hand. So I think Yabo was just lucky there to have his name. Thank you, Honorable Pillay, Honorable Zongula, also after Honorable Meglu. In that order, for now, over to you, Honorable Graham.
Thanks very much, Chairperson. I appreciate it. I'm not going to put my video on if you don't mind, because we are in load shedding, so I'm just worried about signal.
Problem. Go ahead.
Chairperson, thank you very much to the DG and his team for the presentation. They certainly are doing thorough work. So I've just got a few questions to ask. The first one is on slide 4, when we spoke about the performance agreements. The DG mentioned that all the performance agreements are up to date for DGs, but didn't say anything with respect to ministers. So I would just like him to clarify whether or not the ministers' performance agreements are up to date. On slide 5, they spoke about the COVID-19 vaccine rollout. I saw I saw a headline the other day, and I didn't have a chance to read the article, that they had identified that there were massive overpricing issues with the COVID-19 vaccine that was used here. I'd just like to know whether or not there's been any investigation in that respect, and whether or not they've identified that as an issue. In terms of the SASSA-SAPO issue, this is an absolute, you have no idea what a debacle this is, particularly in rural areas. I live in a rural municipality. In the 8 towns that exist in my municipality, 3 of them don't have functional post office. 2 have been closed down completely because they haven't paid their rent. There was one where the person was off sick, so the post office was closed. This doesn't just affect grant recipients. This also affects people who earn stipends through government mass employment initiatives like EPWP, Saki Sizwe, National Youth Service. I've had 47 people who traveled to another town to collect their money this week, only to find that the FICA documents haven't been transferred to the alternative post office. They had no transport to go back. We had to actually give them money to get back to their homes. and buy them food because there was no provision made for them to collect their monies. This is a massive, massive issue. I'm hoping today that the FICA documents have been finalized. We had our own people putting up members of these groups overnight so that they had somewhere to sleep while they were waiting for their payments. So government has got to do something more in terms of ensuring that if they're aware that there are post offices closed in towns, alternative arrangements are made for all government work participants who receive stipends to get that money. In terms of TVET institutions, we've got one in our area. NSFAS is a major issue. TVETs offer 3-month courses, 6-month courses, year courses, and 3-year courses. NSFAS comes through in month 5. So if you're doing a 3-month course, you get your NSFAS payment 2 months after you've completed your program. It cannot be that people are getting their money 2 months after they have completed a program. Or we've got people, most of the people who attend our courses are from out of town. There's no student accommodation at all for these students. So they have to get private accommodation. Then they're only getting their NSFAS 3 or 4 months after they've arrived. They have no food. They've got no rent. They're being taken advantage of by unscrupulous owners of properties. So if in an institution like a TVET college, surely they're aware of how many places there are for that college, and they can allocate monies at the beginning of the year to say, okay, we know there are 900 students in that TVET. Let's allocate the monies. So then it's just a case of matching people to money, so that can happen right at the beginning of the year. So that's a big issue. And obviously better courses. It doesn't help in a town like Graaff-Reinet where there are no corporate organizations to be running HR and office management. Those are not jobs that people are going to get in a town like Graaff-Reinet. We need plumbers, we need electricians, we need artisans, we need people that can work on farms. That's our environment. Tourism, those are the economic drivers in small towns. Those are the courses that should be offered to the people attending TVETs, not office management and HR. In terms of social protection, I'm sure a lot of you saw the Carte Blanche show on Sunday night on the Ekwezi Lokusa Special School in the Eastern Cape, where the conditions are so diabolical. I've never been so sickened to see the treatment of disabled children as what was demonstrated on that show on Sunday night. Please, can you include the Ekwezi Lokusa Special School in your oversight monitoring of special schools and social protection? Local government management improvement model. I saw that you visited Ngobi Yatemba. That's the neighboring constituency to mine. That entire municipality is collapsing. I see you've done assessments, but I'd like to know then what? It doesn't help to go and do an assessment and then there's no action taken thereafter. So are the action steps put in place after an assessment and then monitoring done on that? And then evaluation done on the monitoring, or what is the point of doing those assessments if you're not following up on them? So for now, those are my questions. I appreciate the opportunity. Thanks very much, Chairperson.
Thank you, Honorable Graham. That's a full plate. Maybe before, just to deal with, before I go to Honorable Pillay, just to avoid leakage of answers and duplication of issues, can I ask the DG so that when members come in, there would not be a gap in follow-up, to quickly respond to those issues? There's a lot of issues that you need to do as a homework. There are a lot of things that you can clarify and some questions. Can you respond and your team to those, and then I'll take the next member after that.
Okay, thank you, Chair. I guess on Minister's performance, I will delegate upwards, if that is allowed with your protection. But obviously from the administrative side, as I've indicated, we have agreements in place, or what we are looking forward to are the reports that will be submitted in early October. That will then allow the minister to, the president to meet with the ministers. So the agreements are in place. What we're doing then is to start, we met with the DGs and asked them to be ready to work on the reports. But I guess that the minister will give the overall construct around that. Then we have not done work on the massive overpricing in COVID-19. What we've been focusing on is ensuring that all SIU recommendations are implemented. So we've been focusing more on the previous cases of corruption, and that the SIU recommendations are implemented. There is a dedicated team that is working on this. On NEFSAS, we will be going to NEFSAS in the next 2 weeks on a comprehensive assessment of what is happening there, because besides what the honorable member has raised, there are many other issues. So on one side, you have the quality issues, but there are also governance issues. So we'll be going to NEFSAS. We have initiated that process. The post office is facing serious challenges, and we take the recommendation made by the honorable member on seeking alternatives. But obviously, alternatives will require money. But the point perhaps is that government as a whole has to think about this, because it's a massive problem that is facing the post office. Then on the municipalities, LGMIM, and this is my last point, because we accept the one on dealing with people with disability. On the municipality monitoring system, we make recommendations on interventions that need to be undertaken. And first, the LGMIM intervention seeks to assist the municipality itself to improve its own performance. So this does not largely involve outsiders. So what we'll be doing, we'll be going back to the municipalities. So we assist the municipalities on how to improve their own management and service delivery services. So what we'll be doing here, we go back to these municipalities to check how far they have improved. So in the next reporting period, we should be able to privilege you on our assessment. So first, you must go there, work with them, institute the system, but then only go back at a later stage to evaluate if there have been changes. Now, this is a DPME specific intervention. There are other interventions by cooperative governance and national treasury, which we are also trying to ensure that they are better coordinated. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, DG. If there are any follow-ups, you can come later, Honorable Graham. I now invite Honorable Pillay.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. And let me greet all members on the platform, including all our stakeholders. Chair, let me also note the report and appreciate the presentation that we've received. And I think at the outset, it's important for me to make this point that contrary to what the narrative may be out there, there is definitely exceptional work that's being done by this department, particularly in monitoring and evaluating. And I was happy to receive such a concise report on so many departments and so many of the key services that our citizens require that are actually getting attention. I've also noticed that there's a lot of work that's being done and there's extensive monitoring. And I just have one question to check. Does the department have the capacity to keep up with the volume of work that they are doing? And what is the staff complement? Because if anything, if we are able to motivate and encourage for an increase in this, it's going to help the work that the department is doing. So for me, that would be an important question. And then in particular, there are many, but the one that for me seems to be almost immediate is the 10111. What is the immediate intervention? Because not everybody is able to call the police having airtime, but this number is a free number. And to be able to access that almost immediately for assistance, because we all know how safety and security has become an issue these days. What is the immediate intervention? Because there was a one line on the slide. I just wanted to know, have they taken any intervention, or is there any immediate intervention in terms of the 10111? Then, Chair, with the frontline monitoring system, and I see that the tools that are being used are around project management, data collection, and reporting tools. And the question is, how effective is the system, or how effective has the system been? And I know that they're using different methods, but have they thought of or considered using or including customer satisfaction? Because I think that would enhance what they're already doing. When you include just citizens being able to contribute to saying, this is what is going on, this is how we feel. and this is what can be improved. And then lastly, in the future, I know that we've just started, but it will be nice for us to be involved in some of this evaluation, for us to actually go and see firsthand what is going on. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Pillay. DG and your team, response to that?
Okay, thank you, Chair. On the capacity issue of the department, we do not have the capacity that we need. Under a previous minister, Hadebe, the department was allocated a further 29 positions that were funded. But that money was later taken by National Treasury. So we had an opportunity between ourselves and the National Planning Commission to get additional capacity that was scoped. But because of COVID, we are one of the departments that lost a lot, so we are trying to get back to this, but the situation has gotten worse and worse in terms of the fiscus. So what I discussed this with the minister and said that agreed that in the meantime, we'll have to see how we repurpose the department so that it can work with the means that we have. But in the medium to long term, the department will require more, capacity. On the 10,111 issue, we have made the recommendations. By and large, the recommendation is that the subs should improve the facility. And as I indicated earlier on, there are engagements that will be taking place even at the political level, given the seriousness of this situation. But we'll also engage the Department of Communications, which is a specialist department in this area, and see if it can bring on board some of the big service providers, the likes of MTN and Vodacom, to really come and assist, because this is a make or break. If 10,111 is not working, then we have a challenge. So the first point of departure is to engage with subs. And I've indicated that I've not seen this coming up in the budget that subs has requested for, which is a big issue of concern for us, that they are also not asking for money for 10,111, even when it's evident in public that there are challenges. So those are the things that we are working on, is work in progress. And I guess in the next few months, we'll be able to do that. We do attempt to do our own customer satisfaction surveys, but I must say, Chair, we have not done anything recently because of a cost constraint. And we rely on GCIS. Even for the 30-year review, we have asked GCIS to deal with that part so that we focus on another part. So there is a problem in terms of resources, but the point he made is taken that we need to prioritize this area. But so far, we need to seek those collaborations, particularly with GCIS. Thank you, Chair. And we take the point on monitoring by the committee.
Okay, thank you, DG. Again, Honorable Pillay, if any follow-ups, we'll do them at the end. I now recognize Honorable Maglu.
Thank you, Chairperson. Chairperson, I'm very excited for the establishment of this committee. It's really the most wonderful thing that could have happened to this country, because for years I think this committee is overdue, and it's difficult now to praise this department, but I'm also not denying the fact that they have, to a certain extent, done quite a lot of job. I want to start with the issue of SASSA that is close to everyone's heart, I would argue, in this committee. And that is the payment, the monitoring visits, payment of SASSA. Just last week, during this week and last week, I'm on a number of WhatsApp groups in various communities, and there was an enormous problem as far as the delays in cash payments for social grants is concerned. And beneficiaries are being disadvantaged in this whole process. And I would think that because, so many people rely on grants, that we should have a serious look not only at the pay points, but also at the system itself. And I'm not too sure whether perhaps the load shedding also have played a role in the impact that we have as far as it was particular to small businesses. That is the first thing. The second thing, close to heart, is the safety of schools. We do find that there's an escalation of drugs in our peri-rural areas, and maybe if the department also can just take us to that in terms of their role and their oversights. I really appreciate, and the question has been asked in terms of the capacity. I appreciate the fact that there is unannouncement visits with particular reference to the officials in this department. But you will find in all spheres, most of the portfolio committees, they are also doing oversight and unannounced visits and, pertaining to frontline service delivery and so on. But I want to ask, how often does this department conduct these unannounced visits? And if it is possible that the department submit us with the list of facilities that has been visited, when, and also what the results were. I'm interested in to see the remedial action that has been taken during these kind of visits. Now, we've mentioned a lot of things that has happened, and I'm happy that the presenters also speak to the issue of assisting and how we're going to deal with the corruption issues. Now, if my memory serves me well, some time ago, a year ago, the monitoring framework of the DPME speaks specifically, and I think this is, if we want to heal and to save our country, that speaks specifically to the recommendations of the Zondo Commission's report. And some of the stuff has been directed to various government to deal with it, to implement it. And I'm curious to see the outcome of this. And I must say, with due respect, in some of the Zondo Commission's report, ministers have been implicated. What has happened to that report, and how are we dealing with that report as far as the outcome is concerned? So it is important for us, to have a kind of a wish list, to say, listen, we will work on all of these, and so that we can also play our part as members of parliament, to say that the department itself had some unannounced visits in this particular area. Let's go and see whether the action has been taken. And the issue of KZN is also close to, I think, most of our hearts, the monitoring thereof, the outcome thereof, because there are still reports in the KZN issues pertaining to people that has not been, taken to their original way or place. So they are still in discomfort and they are not being dealt with. And lastly, finally, Chairperson, the issue of COVID-19. We have lost almost 50 billion rand as far as corruption is concerned. Now, the role of this department in terms of, following these cases and also announce on the amount of monies being retrieved from all of that, and also the actions that has been taken amongst these or towards these individuals. I think we need these reports so that we can know, as a committee, this is the way forward from now. And again, Chair, the establishment of this committee, the future of this committee, and also our planning, it is much welcome from our side. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Maglua. DG and any of your members to respond to the issues that needs a response from what Honorable Maglua has raised.
No, thanks, Chair. So far, I'm responding alone because, as I've indicated, that 3 DDGs are not here. But at the end, I will give the one digit. So ordinarily, I would have spread the questions to some of them. So my apology for just running on my own. But the DDG was here is going to also speak. Just let me just pick one issue, Chair, on this, on the Zondo Commission. What we have done, the President has established what we call the National Advisory Council, National Anti-Corruption Advisory Council, which is chaired by Professor Frost Kachalia, and it includes people from different walks of life. So that is in place, created by the President. And DPME is responsible for Secretariat services. They have started to do their work as this committee. And we met with them recently with the DGs from the other departments because we didn't want them to just work in isolation. So we are working together with the DGs from the governance cluster so that when we develop a plan, when they develop their own modus operandi, then also take into account how different departments are going to be affected. So I also indicated that we have a dedicated team that is focusing on the implementation of all SIU recommendations. Because, Chair, the SIU recommendations are twofold. There are those that go to the National Prosecution Authority. So we don't have much role in that. But there are also recommendations that are government-facing, that require certain government departments to undertake certain responsibilities. And we found that in many cases, that part was not moving. People are not being disciplined even when there are recommendations from the SIU. So this is one area that we've been focusing on, and we report to SCOPA on this. SCOPA always invite us to report on the implementation of the SIU recommendations going back many years, but I think the same report can also serve in this committee. On the post bank issue, there was a statement that we saw in the last 2 days indicating that the post bank was down. And that links to what I said earlier on, even though we didn't go into details. So it's something that we'll have to continue to attend to. And we do undertake analysis, and we take the point that made by the honorable member. And then, of course, I've dealt with the KZN issues. The DDG will come later to just look at things that I might have missed, Chair, with your permission, once I'm done with my part of responses.
Okay, thank you. Honorable Zungula.
Thank you, Chair. I'm going to be very brief. I did greet everyone earlier on. Chair, I want to find out from the department, because I note that the work they do cuts across different departments, of which I could think members of parliament or portfolio committees of parliament could benefit from those insights. Particularly, I'm interested, for example, in the work that they did when it comes to the floods that our country had last year and beginning of this year. So my question is, how is the department actually working or exposing their work with the different portfolio committees, as that would basically aid those portfolio committees with a specific focus on some of the issues that they are dealing with, instead of working, perhaps doing a good job, but only to find out some of the committees who could benefit from their work are basically in the dark. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Zungula. Very pointed issues raised there. Mr. Nkuna.
No, thank you, Chairperson. Just 2 issues here. There are committees that invite us for presentations. One of those is the appropriation committee, and I know that in the next few weeks, we'll be appearing before that committee. But Honorable Zungula is correct, because we are at the mercy of the committees. When they invite us, we go to them. If we're not invited, we have not built a mechanism maybe to even probe them on our side. But what we did on the disaster management issue, We appeared to before the ad hoc committee. Remember, there was an ad hoc committee that was created for this purpose. So the only time, other than our own portfolio committee, when we engage with Parliament, was through the ad hoc committee, where we make a substantial input in the report that they did. But we take the point that maybe on our side can also alert committees when we have reports that are relevant to them, so that maybe through this committee also alert on many reports that we have, and the committee can also advise on where we can take certain reports. Maybe this will come up also in the strategic planning session of the committee, Chair.
Thank you. Well, I was going to make the point that some of the issues raised by members here, we're flagging them because we're going to have to discuss them properly in the strat plan so that they become part of the things we do. Because this committee has not been there before. So there's quite a number of things. Honorable Zongola raised some of those in relation to issues of coordination as an example. So because there are just about 3 transversal committees you have. One has been absent, which is this one, for the whole of government, and then you've got appropriations in relation to issues of finance, and COGTA as well. So when we meet and plan and develop our own program and approach, there is going to be a way of how we interface with those, not just them calling you to a meeting, but even as portfolio committees. Let me now invite Honorable Yabo.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair. I will just be brief. The first question I will ask is, since the department has reckoned that there is a lack of protocols between itself and departments, provinces, and municipalities, when is the department envisaging the finalization and facilitation of these protocols? And also, since the Presidential Hotline is outsourced through CETA on a 3-year contract, does it mean CETA facilitates a third-party contracting as the middleman on behalf of the presidency, or how does it work? And do all complaints get through to the hotline without being filtered by the system? Lastly, Chair, on the Khawuleza APP, since Khawuleza has an APP, does this mean that after the launch and piloting thereof in Limpopo in 2020, it then became countrywide? And if the answer is yes to that, are citizens finding it useful? And does it charge when it is used, and who bears those costs? Let me pause there, Chair. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Yabo. I'm going to ask that your last 2 issues, you hold them back. You must come back on them when we make the presentation on the presidential hotline, so that you link them on that. And then the other issue raised, perhaps I might just add on the issues you've raised, both for the minister as well as the DG. I think Honorable Mafuza is raising a critical point about these issues of lack of protocols. Earlier on, I don't know whether it was the minister yourself when you said there is a lack of enforcement mechanism. Because it's one thing to go and do these unannounced visits, the oversight, and do even if it's desktop. Because when you diagnose a problem and you find there's a problem, to remedy that, it means if there's a lack of enforcement, it becomes an academic exercise. So the issue is in responding to this lack of protocols and the lack of enforcement mechanism. Maybe the minister and yourself must just indicate, Minister, as to having identified that there's a lack of enforcement, what is the plan to have a different approach to that? Because this department If there's anything it must have teeth. It must have that enforcement. It's a department that cuts across, is overarching, and it's situated in the presidency. And so the issue is there any thinking? Is there a plan in place to ensure that we do have that enforcement, which is lacking? And the second point, DG, you said you went beyond monitoring in some of these disasters, basically dirtied your hands and assisted those, whether it's municipality or whatever that you assisted. And the issue therefore would be that's not the capacity that you have. You don't have a capacity to deal with disaster issues. Your capacity is at a different level. And it's not a mistake that it is so. So when you find yourself having to assist, where is COGTA in that space? Because the issues of disaster are at the level of COGTA. Where is COGTA in that space in terms of them playing a role that makes you to be the ones playing that role? What is the issue? Have you? Because I'm interested in COGTA's involvement in assisting any of those institutions or municipalities that would be involved and are not able to either assess this damage, put up a budget, put up a recovery plan, and so on. Towards DPME, it's not its role to do that. Yours is to both looking back, doing the monitoring, but also assisting them to help avoid some of these through proper planning. Just respond to those issues. Maybe when you have done responding, then the minister can come in. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Just first, quickly on the issue of, I will deal with one part that is administrative. We do issue guidelines on the, for strategic planning and all those kind of things for departments as a DPME. So the only instruments that we have on our side are mainly guidelines that we issue on how to approach strategic planning, the format of the APPs and all those kind of things. So that is one part. But I guess the question is mainly on the other part of, after all these things said and done, how do you get the results? So I'll leave it at that for my side. And quickly on the interventions related to the disaster, when we arrived in KZN on a monitoring visit, we found that disaster management was in a complete disarray. You'd remember that many ministers visited KZN on the first week. In fact, it was on Good Friday when we arrived in KZN, and they went in different ways. So there was no coordination of what was going on, even between national and the province. So when we arrived here, we found that there was just no coordination at all. So what we had to do, one, institute the coordination mechanism so that we can work together. The other issue was on data, as I indicated, and through DDG Godfrey Mashamba, we had to ask CSIR to come on board. And together with DPME, we create a template for reporting, because there was no template for reporting. So we were getting different reports from different people. And we had to assist with the creation of the standardized template. I think COGTA was also overwhelmed by that situation in my observation. And what we found also was that the National Disaster Management Center, there is no system of disaster management in any case, even when you have institutions that are dealing with disaster. So the long and short of what I'm trying to say, Chair, is that coordination was not there, was poor. There was no clear reporting a template, and then there was a challenge in terms of data management. And we had to intervene with respect to some of those issues. We also found that the reporting that was instituted was very difficult for some of the departments, because there was this thing that you must first go to the provincial treasurer before you do anything. And then once you have done procurement, you must go back to the provincial treasurer. That also lengthened the process of intervention. So we had to intervene on those kind of issues and ensure that we change course in the way we were doing things. So that's what we had to do to assist ICOGTA. Lastly, the review of the NDMC was necessitated because of that experience, that the National Disaster Management Center cannot continue to work the way it has been working. And we have been part of the review of how best it can operate as a system and not just merely as an organization. So, Chair, I will end there on my side. And if we still have time, I would have asked DDG Mahomo to just speak on the local government monitoring, just on that alone, because there was a question on what is it that we are finding there and what is that we do to ensure that there is enforcement. So she will just deal with that question, Chair, also in lieu of time. Thank you. DDG Mahomo, just on the local government issue.
Thank you very much, DG. Good morning, Honorable Chair and of the committee and the committee members and my minister and all my principals. Thank you very much for the opportunity. I love my work. I would have loved to talk a lot about it, but I think I'll get an opportunity in the next cycle. My name is Mahomo Chatsinde. My responsibility is sector monitoring. And local government, the LGMIN, we talk about it as an LGMIN, falls within part of what I do. So in terms of the assessments, we've done quite a number of assessments, especially for all municipalities. The only challenge which we had with municipalities was in the Western Cape, but we do have information in terms of the management practices as well as the capacity and the capabilities of municipalities, and we've given a lot of support as well as recommendations. And we do have implementation plans which we put, and we track them, implementation of our suggestions or our recommendations, and we liaise with National Treasury. We also liaise with COGTA, because we also are monitors of monitors, meaning that we're monitoring what COGTA is doing. And quite recently, we've realized that with the state at which municipalities are, there is more to need us to intervene. So we are now looking at capacity building, as well as looking at how we can be able to do and further in-depth assessment. So there is rapid assessments which we do. Currently we're also doing the coordinating side. DG talked about it, and we are in several municipalities to help, especially those which are collapsed municipalities. We're in Northwest right now, trying to see how we can assist in turning it around, the municipalities, so that at least we could have effective service delivery. And so we do have quite a number of footprint in the municipalities where we do our monitoring, and we come with especially on service delivery, and come up with interventions, suggestions, and follow up on that. Let me leave it there. Thank you.
Thank you. Honorable Minister, your last word on this.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson, and let me take this opportunity, of course, to thank all the inputs that have been given and the questions that have been asked. Definitely we can also know that we are going to work hard in making sure that when we go to the strategic planning, we would then now be able to present on some of the deeper questions that may need us to be able to come up with scenarios that we believe can actually be answers to some of those questions, whereby we would definitely be assisted by the strategic planning of this committee to be able to speak to some of those issues. There was a question, of course, in closing where about the performance of ministers. It is definitely done. As I was giving my opening remarks, I did mention that there are priorities that the president, the deputy president, myself have been able to sit down with different ministers to be able to come up with, and that of course resulted in the performance agreement between ministers and the president himself. So yes, definitely that is done, and we have finalized it. in 6 months' time, probably maybe now it's going to be 3 months' time, or 4 months' time, 6 months' time from the time that we did it. We said that we will come back again to check if that has been implemented, and if there are challenges, how do we come in? In terms of making sure that we have mechanisms that would be able to enforce some of these reports that we put in place, what we have currently done at the moment is that we have requested the President that we would like to write to him at least once a month on issues that we believe that needs to be looked at. And even before we give diagnostic reports, we would like to write to him so that he can then now be able to take up some of these issues that we're raising through different institutions, such as what you can call maybe forums, whether it's the cabinet meeting or it's the PCC, the Presidential Coordinating Council, to raise those issues, and we can then now be able to give more information as a secretariat. In the meantime, until such time that maybe we have then now been able to push that we get an act that would allow us to have a teeth to bite, lack of a better way to say. So we're still working on the act. It has been going to and fro from us to the cabinet, and there are no agreements in some of the issues. So once it's done and we're finalized, that we will obviously request that the portfolio committee, especially yourself as the chairperson, find a way of assisting us, that it must be passed as soon as possible, the bill, because we're still working on the bill. Once the bill is finalized through relevant processes, we definitely know that at least we would be having a platform and a system or a tool that we can be able to use to enforce some of these things that we are putting in place. So that's just what I would like to say for now. And in terms of SASSA, I think just in closing, we do know that, of course, Post Office is still going through a business rescue. And SASSA has indicated, of course, in one of the platforms that we're with them, that they will look at other alternatives to be able to render a better service to their clients. So we do believe that in no time we'll definitely be seeing an improvement as it relates to that. And we are continuously, of course, engaging them because it is quite important that we don't just give them a report of what we've seen, but on this one, we consistently make sure that we do get, even if it's a verbal progress report on how far they are, so that we can then now be able to give responses where necessary. However, let me just say that I'm really grateful for the comments, the questions, and the positivity at which our presentation have been received. This gives us more oomph to be able to work harder and improve on areas where we should be able to improve to give a better product to what you would expect us to do. Thank you, Honorable Chairperson.
Thank you, Honorable Minister, for that response. Certainly, the issue of the bill is going to be one of our priority issues in this committee, because if the lack of enforcement is as a result of that, we're going to drive it. I can give you good news that says this committee has got teeth. So we have enforcement, and we're going to do that to you. If you don't have teeth to deal with the issues from your level, you're going to have to face the heavy pressure from us, because we certainly have the powers to do what we need to do as the committee. And the sooner the department has that, it will be better for it. But we'll not stop and wait until then in order for us to play our effective oversight over the department. So, colleagues, maybe let's leave it there now for this. There are a lot of issues that have been raised, and I hope with the Secretariat we're able to pick up a few things that we certainly are going to have to follow on as we do our work of this committee, whether it's at the strategic planning workshop or even beyond that. There's a lot of work that we need to do. It's just unacceptable that SASSA issue would have been at the highest court of this land years ago, and it remains an issue that doesn't seem to be resolved, even if it's taking a different dimension. I'm just mentioning that as one, but everything that has come out of this presentation is almost a bread and butter issue for our communities, and it's good that this committee has really made itself busy on those issues. But I can assure you, as we go to the strat plan and beyond that, we're going to want to make sure that all of these issues become part of our program. And Honorable McGlew has made the point. And when we make them part of our program, it's not just going to be at a level of presentation. We're going to touch ground on some of these issues. You have given us the menu, and we're going to pick up anything from that menu as part of our program. If you do an unannounced visit, we'll do that in a number of areas, because these are important transversal country issues that we're going to have to take up. Maybe let's then leave this now and go to the last presentation on the presidential hotline. DG.
Thank you, Chairperson. Once again, I will ask Melisizwe Blegi to lead on that one. He knows that where he doesn't have more than 20 minutes, so he's aware of that, because that's a shorter presentation. So I'll ask him to take us through the presentation.
Good morning, Chairperson. Good morning, Minister. Good morning to members of the committee, and good morning to fellow colleagues that are with me. And thank you for this opportunity, Chair and honorable members, for us to share the work we are doing as the Presidential Hotline. And we look forward to your sage advice and counsel on how we can better do the job that we are doing. I just want to start on slide number 3, where it's talking about the vision of the Presidential Hotline. And I think it's very important for us because it sort of sets the tone of where we're going. And just to indicate that, Chair, when we started the hotline in 2009, fortunately, I was part of that. It had a different outlook to what it is today. We have moved miles to where we are today. Just to begin to say that the vision it's aimed at becoming an apex complaints management system that is responsive and that is modernizing, and that is most importantly citizen oriented, that is agile, and it operates like a rapid response, like a public complaints management system. And in doing that, Chair, we're saying that we can only do that, we can only become modernized when we start to embrace the technology that is available in today's world. And in doing that, we're saying we cannot only rely on the telephony system that the hotline currently uses. We need to expand and make sure that we look at other channels. We look at the social media, and hence we're talking about Khawuleza app, but I'll come to Khawuleza app at a later stage. And we're saying that in doing that, we also have to maximize the information that we are gathering as the Presidential Hotline, because previously it was an exercise of just collecting what the public is saying, but not really delving into the issues that they are raising and the strategic importance of those issues. So we're looking towards a situation or an era where the hotline is an early warning system that identify emerging issues and coming with proactive solutions to that, and then making sure that we become extensive in the feedback. And that is very important, because in some of the customer satisfaction surveys that we have conducted, one of the issues that the public is raising is that we take long to respond to them. And this is one issue that we took very seriously, when we got that feedback from the public. So those 4 pillars of those 4 bullets are very important in guiding where we want to go as the presidential hotline. Next slide, Thabo. The next slide, colleagues and honorable members, it talks about the architecture of the hotline. And the reason why we included this slide is precisely to give you a sense of how it all comes together. Because quite often, the presidential hotline is misunderstood. For instance, the understanding is that DPME solves the queries or the complaints. And that is not the case, because we are monitoring and evaluation. Ours is to facilitate the resolution of complaints by national departments. And we've been doing that for a very long time. But also, we don't end there. We make sure we go an extra mile, because there are instances where national departments would drag their feet and would be forced to get out of our offices and go to them and work together with them in some instances to deal with the cases that are not being resolved. And just to give you a sense of this particular slide, we are still, as I was indicating, we're still using the telephony system, which we're trying to move away from, and also emails. And the push now is to quickly get into what we call the omni channels, meaning your social media. And we are currently busy with that. By end of October, that is what is on the project plan. We are hoping to have covered the groundwork in terms of getting the omni channels up and running. And we've given ourselves the deadline of the end of the financial year, where we have tested everything and being sure that everything is running smoothly. So we will be up and running with the omni channels by the end of the financial year. Next slide, Thabo. Next slide, Thabo. In terms of the next slide, thank you, Thabo. In terms of the next slide, the most important thing here, colleagues, is the timeline, and which I think it's important, so that colleagues and honorable members begin to appreciate the time it has taken for the hotline to become what it is today become. We started in 2009, and in 2011, which was like 2 years later, we were transferred to DPME, and then that came with its own set of challenges, but it was for the better, I must indicate. And in 2012, we conducted diagnostic studies, which were done by the TAU, the Technical Assistance Unit of the National Treasury. That was in 2011. I've just lost the visuals now, but I'll just speak on the hard copies that I have. So in 2012, there was the diagnostic, and the diagnostic pointed to what we are busy doing now, to say we could not be stuck in the past using only telephony to reach people or for people to reach us. So there was, even in 2012, a strong drive and emphasis that we need to look at omni channels. And after that, then we consulted even further, for instance, in 2019 with the CSIR, and whose diagnostic report also pointed to the need to get into omni channels and to tighten up the customer end of things, because as it is now, the customer in this case is a citizen, can only contact us via telephone. So the move was that, yes, as citizens can contact us, but are we responding as efficiently and as quickly as possible to citizens? And hence, in 2020, you saw the then Deputy Minister Siwaya introducing Khawuleza app, which was actually a pilot project, which was piloted in Limpopo. And that was, if you remember, right in the middle of COVID. And maybe the timing at the time was not perfect, but it was launched in Limpopo. In terms of the analysis that we've conducted as DPME, we found that the timing was not so clever, in that the uptake was not to what we had expected, and what it came with. For instance, the issue of somebody having to have data to access the app, and other considerations that we looked at. For instance, we consulted with colleagues from Gauteng Department of Basic Education, who were responsible for the registration app that Premier Panyaza introduced, and they gave us some quite important pieces of advice on how to better the Khawuleza app. And then from Khawuleza app, then we are where we are now in terms of the digitization. How do we get the hotline to really be digitized and to be more responsive almost in an instant? So that this slide is really about that, so that members can begin to appreciate the journey that we have traveled to where we are today. Next slide, Tabo. Whilst waiting for Tabo, I will talk to the presentation nonetheless. Before I get to the performance in terms of the numbers, I think I need to highlight something, and this is largely triggered by the questions that were posed, I think, by Honorable Yabo on the work of the hotline. Yes, the hotline is contracted to CETA on a 3-year contract basis, and the last contract ended at the end of March, and we are on a new contract. And in terms of the new contract, CETA is supposed to provide the the call center services, as well as other technical aspects that relate to call center services. So CETA, just to answer the question, CETA does not negotiate on our behalf in terms of the third parties. In other words, when we get complaints, they get referred to provinces. The contract there is between us and the provinces. So CETA is not involved. Theirs is just to route the call. So, but the one thing that we can say, which is quite positive, is that in spite of all the years that the Presidential Hotline has been in place and all the difficulties and challenges that we have experienced, the public continues to have confidence not confidence, but to prefer, using the Presidential Hotline, notwithstanding the difficulties that we experience. Because as you can imagine, is that we rely on the provinces to respond to us, and the only thing we can do is to call them and say, remember, we sent you a complaint. Please, can you respond to us? And with time, we found that is a challenge, and we started to engage provinces in the form of writing letters. DG has recently signed some letters to provinces, impressing on them to first and foremost prioritize the work of the hotline. In other words, to prioritize all complaints that have been sent to them, because the challenge we're experiencing, which led us to resort to these letters, was that we'll send complaints and departments would ignore those. And they knew very well that there was nothing, Chairperson, that was going to follow. So we started to utilize the letters, the DG to DG letters. We further spotted an opportunity at GISCID, where we reported GISCID, where departments would know how are they performing in as far as the Presidential Hotline is concerned. And further to that, we also handle email correspondence. It's not only telephony. There's emails that come through to us, and these are people who do not call, but these are citizens that prefer to use emails. And there was a challenge with this in the COVID, I'll call it the COVID years, because they were at the union building where the staff that deals with the emails could not come, and there was an accumulation of those emails. but we have since dealt with that backlog. We no longer have that backlog. So those were some of the challenges that we experienced at that time. I see Thabo has lost me. Now I wanted to go to the actual performance. In terms of the performance, colleagues, it's not where we had wanted it to be in terms of the provinces, but safe to say, provinces like KwaZulu-Natal, which is the second largest province with complaints, it's doing phenomenally well, considering the fact that they were at the tail end of the performance. It's a province that we are so proud of, because after speaking to them, after engaging with them, they started to turn the corner, and they've been consistent, and they've never dropped the ball. Provinces like the Northern Cape, after sending the letters, and they responded quite positively, and we started to see some change, and were invited, for instance, by the office of the Premier in Northern Cape, and we started to engage, and they appreciated actually the work that is done by the Presidential Hotline. So also provinces like Limpopo, they are doing quite well in terms of responding to complaints. And then we have provinces like Gauteng, which was doing quite well previously, but for some reason, we started to see a downturn in how they are responding to complaints, and it ended up them, sort of not a shutdown, but totally not responding. But we are having a meeting with them next week to precisely look at those issues. And then in terms of national departments, the national departments, as you can expect, that would attract a number of queries or complaints would be your Home Affairs, Human Settlements, and Department of Labor. And Home Affairs is doing, impressively well in terms of dealing with their complaints, notwithstanding the fact that they have a high number of complaints, but they are dealing with those. But then the challenge that we're experiencing is with the Department of Labor, of which we already spoken to their senior management, and they've committed to turn the corner. I think with them, it's some of those that came from COVID. Remember, during COVID, there was the payments that citizens were getting, and I think it's a backlog of that, but it's something that they have undertaken to rectify. And then the question that you might ask as honorable members would be, what are the key issues? What are South Africans complaining about, largely? The issues that came out tops, it's social benefits, your SRD complaints. People are still complaining about that, and largely where to get them, and the issue that DG was alluding to, the access to these facilities, where to get to access these, and others, it will be issues of registration. Other issues will relate to the 350s. I'll call them 350s. And the second highest complaint that we have seen is that of employment or unemployment. The citizens are still complaining about that quite a lot. And thirdly, and quite interestingly, it's information from government. In other words, the citizens seem not to know where to go to access government services. That came number 3. And number 4, it's housing. Issue of housing is still a problem, and it came number 4. And interestingly, electricity, Chairperson, it came number 5. And there are a host of other queries or complaints that the citizens are complaining about. But that is just a high level a presentation on what we're picking up as we're doing this work. And in terms of challenges, I appreciate the question.
I hope you're about to wrap up now.
Yes, I'm finishing. That was the last slide, but just want to wrap up, Chair, to say there was a question by Honorable Yabo about the protocols, and it's an issue that we take very seriously, even ourselves, because in the absence of a protocol agreement, it becomes difficult for us to engage with departments. And it's one area we're also looking to tighten so that it's easier for us to engage with colleagues in national departments and provinces. I'll stop there, Chairperson. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to start with you, Honorable Yabo. I had packed your questions to be followed by Honorable Piri, Honorable Graham, Honorable Pillay, those are the hands I have. Honorable Zongola, is that an old hand or a new hand?
Old hand, Chair.
Thank you. Honorable Yabo.
Thank you very much. It was an old hand. My apologies that I kept it up so out.
No problem. Thank you. Honorable Piri.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning to yourself. Good morning, colleagues, and good morning to the Minister and the team. Chair, I don't have a lot of questions, but mine, on the presentation, I'm observing that there's a good story to tell, or the department on its own has managed, or the provinces like your KZN, Limpopo, Western Cape, has a high rate of response, which is a good thing, and with Western Cape being the highest. Chair, my question with the department, how are they going to assist, or what are the mechanisms that they are going to put in terms of other provinces that are not performing well? And in doing so, what are the good sharing? Because I believe that they need to have a session, or they need to have a system that will also assist other provinces that are not responding correctly. Secondly, it's on the basis that you have a high number of calls in their inboxes, like in terms of the Department of SAPS, Home Affairs, which all of us, or even South African, are crying about the high rate number of services that are very poor. Or on that basis, what mechanism are they putting, and how are they going to make sure that we get proper responses in the name of speeding up service delivery and responding to the calls that South Africans are making? Chair, all of us, we could attest to the long queues and of your SASSA beneficiaries, especially in your what we call the post offices, that they've just alluded that they are in a source of they are under. I got lost of the word, but I just want to understand how will the department assist in terms of making sure your post offices are well up again and be in a position to run and assist our grannies to get what they're supposed to get. We've got most of the South Africans grannies, and even those who are beneficiaries, relying on post office, and we have a lot. For example, in my constituency, I've got a post office that is not working. And if it's not working, where are these people going to get their grant? Lastly, Chair, before I could conclude, is that in real sense, are we sure, are we certain as legislatures that all South Africans are aware of the presidential hotline? Is this hotline accessible to everybody, in particular those who are in deep rural areas? Do they have another mechanism or a strategy, a marketing strategy that will say everybody must access it? Those who are especially in deep rural areas, your Eastern Cape, where you find it's not accessible. Are we in a position to be more innovative so that our citizens can access this hotline and they launched Khawuleza app. In the areas where we don't have a network, how will they be in a position to lodge their complaints in the presidential hotline? Thanks, Chair. Let me land here.
Thank you, Honorable Piri. DG Nguna and Becky, your responses.
Okay. Chair, let me start on this one. You can deal with the technical part. Just very quickly, one of the things that we're going to do as soon as we finalize the digitization program, we'll request the Minister and the President to relaunch the presidential hotline, which will also assist us in terms of the question around marketing. But also, the provinces must also shoulder the responsibility to use whatever platforms they have to also inform citizens about the presidential hotline. So the current problem is that it has been limited to us, to talk about the presidential hotline. But when it is relaunched, will require everyone to also participate in propagating the message about the presidential hotline. The last point, Chair, which is very important, is a performance issue. That not responding to citizens or responding to citizens is a performance issue. So we are toying with an idea internally within ourselves to make sure that in the what is called key management areas of DGs, we include the responses to the presidential hotline as an area of assessment of DGs. Now we'll do that mindful of the fact that complaints are not always the same. Some require a longer time, some can be resolved in a shorter space of time. But then in that situation where you are faced with a long complaint that is complex, I guess there must be an indication that there's work that's being done. So we are exploring that, Chair, and we believe that by so doing, we'll be able to get provinces to prioritize responding to the citizens through the hotline. Thank you.
Thank you. Any additions, Becky?
Thank you, Chairperson. Just to add, the question was, how are we going to make sure that other provinces and departments perform as good as KwaZulu-Natal and other provinces? The plan is out there. The plan is that we have what we call the Public Liaison Officers Forum. So the colleagues that are based in provinces, we call them PLOs, not in the form of parliamentary liaison officers, but public liaison officers. We have a forum that we hold twice a year. We had one in May. In this forum, this is more of a workshop where we present the performance of other provinces, where the best performing provinces, they share their best practices with their peers. And further to that, what we then do, we go directly to provinces. We go to districts where there are teething problems, and we resolve complaints with them. So those from a technical point of view, those are the efforts or measures that we have undertaken, and also engaging with senior managers, because what we also picked up was that the way we pitched, these engagements was quite low. And now we're pitching, as we have started with the letters to accounting officers. So we started to pitch things a bit higher at this time. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you. Honorable Graham.
Thank you very much, Chairperson, and thank you very much for the presentation to the DG and Mr. Blakey. Much appreciated. Very interesting. And I must tell you, I'm a member of Parliament, and I didn't know what the presidential hotline number was, nor did I know the address, and nor did I know how to get in touch with them. So your marketing definitely leaves a lot to be desired. And I do believe that a marketing strategy needs to be embarked upon, but also that you need to make sure that all your systems are in place if you're going to market, because if you're going to have a massive influx of calls and contacts, you need to be geared for that. May I also suggest that you look at a Facebook page and Facebook Messenger. Facebook has a free data plan for people who don't have data. So they can access Facebook posts and they can utilize Facebook Messenger without videos and pictures. So it's just text-based. But it's one way. I know that a lot of the people in my community contact me on Facebook Messenger because it's free. So it is a very, very good platform to use for engagement for people who don't have data. But I agree with Honourable Perry that you've got to find a way of making this more accessible for people in deep rural areas because data is a problem, airtime is a problem, and obviously signal is a problem. Then just on slide 7 of your presentation, which you didn't really go into much, it's quite disturbing to see how low the resolution rate or the performance is for provinces and national departments for this year, for Q1. I mean, we're talking at 15% for provinces and 23% for national departments. So that obviously needs to be addressed. And when you spoke about the KPIs for DGs, I was going to say that could be one way of trying to push for better enforcement and more cooperation. But I think it also needs to form part of a minister's KPIs because the minister can't hold a DG to account for something that he's not aware of or she's not aware of. And then on slide 11, there again, you speak about the lack of protocols, the MOUs, that obviously needs to be increased. Oh, what I wanted to say is when you do the marketing, it might not be a bad idea to get GCIS to standardize all stationery, your email signatures, etc., with links to the presidential hotline and the various mechanisms for getting that, so that it becomes a standardized option on everybody who uses any government stationery. There is a link there for people to link to the presidential hotline. And then my last question is, in terms of information gathering, it says on slide 11 that there is insufficient use of the data generated. My concern is that what you might be missing is the repeat offenders. In other words, you might have people who are regularly reporting the same issues that could then be collated and said, okay, this department has a real issue with this section of what they're doing. How do we address it and how do we do that? So in terms of the monitoring and evaluation, I do think that the data gathering is very, very important in terms of determining what the key issues are, like you've done with the sort of social benefits, et cetera, but it might be better utilized for them to then monitor their effectiveness in terms of those issues that are repeat offenders or those departments that are repeat offenders. But I really do believe that the presidential hotline is an imperative part of governance. And the more we can do to get this up and running and more effective, I think the better it'll be for citizens to feel like they have an additional voice somewhere where they can try and find some level of resolution. Oh, one other question, I do apologize. On things like emails, telephone calls, etc., certainly on emails, is there an automatic response? In other words, you send an email, is there an automatically generated response that says, thank you, we've received your inquiry and it will be sent off? If so, how quickly is that done? And then what are the sort of timeframes given for the resolution of that? So if I get a response and it says, I'm going to respond within 24 hours, I need to know that that's going to be done. So does the automatically generated response give a time frame, or is it just an open-ended thing and we'll sort of get back to you, whenever we can? Thanks very much.
Thank you, Honorable Graham. DG and Ms. Becky.
Yes, Chair, I will ask Mr. Blakey to answer all the questions. These ones are for him. Over to you.
Thank you, Chairperson. Thank you, DG. We welcome the advice from Honorable Graham. In terms of marketing, the marketing strategy is out there, and it's not something that we're gonna start from scratch. It's out there. It's at the level of being signed off, and interestingly, it incorporates some of the insights that you have shared with us, Honorable Graham. So it's something that is out there, and to the point that you've just made, to say we must be careful of marketing when the capacity to deal with the influx is not there. So that is also something that we have kept in mind. In terms of Facebook, the messenger, it's precisely what the omni-channel that I talked about that will be rolled out around October, November, that we'll be looking at. And in that regard, I must say, we have had a very, very frank and quite critical engagements with the private office of the president in the form of the advisor, the communication advisor to the president, Mr. Stain Speed, where we sat with him and he looked at both the presidential hotline, the Khawuleza app, and how best this can be improved. And there was a private company that he invited, and they had some critical, advice, good advice to share with us on how best can we take things forward. So we're not only relying on our own experiences in other institutions, but we're also taking leaf from what the private sector is saying in as far as this area is concerned. In terms of standardization, yes, it's happening, Honorable Graham. For instance, if you go to police stations, the number is there. I know the one, for instance, in Brooklyn and in Garsfontein here in Pretoria. I do see that, but I don't know in others. But precisely, it's something that I think GCIS has got to work on, making sure that other public institutions, they do carry the numbers and the email addresses. In terms of the emails, yes, we have an email that responds to citizens when they send these queries. But in terms of the turnaround times, it's difficult to put the turnaround time because the issue differs, because the issue might be about land reform. And when we say we will answer you in 24 hours, 72 hours, then it becomes we are essentially lying to the citizens, because that will take longer. But the only thing it says, we acknowledge receipt of this, and we will attend to your query, and that's what it says at the moment, because of the complexity of the cases that we receive. Just to go back to what Honorable Piri has raised regarding the access of citizens that are in far-flung areas, the Khawuleza app is designed in such a way to precisely cater for those that won't have access to data. There is a USSD component, which is the unstructured, the USSD, the star 120 star, which enables citizens who don't have data to be able to capture their queries. So that has also been catered for. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, the last member, Honorable Pillay.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Chair, let me move straight into the questions. The first one is around improvements on the system. And I think we've heard about trying to incorporate all the different mediums of communication. And one of the things that I want to recommend, if they've not already considered it, is the WhatsApp medium. When I got to Parliament, I realized that Parliament operates on WhatsApp. And I found it to be most effective, from committees to study groups, etc. And I think it's really something that we can be able to use. But also a call me back system, which actually shows a government that's caring. I must note the improvements and the responses. It must be noted that we've been able to respond to all of this. Chair, I'm concerned about an elephant in the room, which is something that I've noticed exists in many of the departments, and that is the CETA. I have the opportunity of serving in Home Affairs, and I've realized that the biggest challenge we have is around CETA. And perhaps we need to look at this committee, how we address that. And then also, have you considered a national call center that's linked or channeled to all the relevant departments, so that you are able to then communicate directly and be able to filter this information and be able to track it? I'm concerned about the pilot. It was 2020. We are now in 2023. There's 3 years later, and a pilot can't be that long. In fact, we should now be seeing it rolled out completely, because it should not be at a pilot stage. And then what is the timeline? Is there an SOP in terms of how we deal with the hotline? turnaround strategies. Also, just to say that I heard during COVID the emails accumulated, but could not the emails be accessed remotely so that it would have not allowed for such a backlog? And then just for future purposes, for future meetings and perhaps maybe the strat plan, if we can have a breakdown of the queries per ministry and some of the issues that are raised, so we have an understanding of what exactly citizens are complaining about or what it is that citizens are querying about. And that's how you'll be able to even decipher where the delinquents are. And if there can be perhaps a spreadsheet with complaints and queries and the status of those queries, but also timeframes. And the last one, Honorable Piri has covered so well, is around the marketing and awareness. Because really, we need to be able to start putting this information out. And one of the suggestions I have is to create a poster that can be sent to members who can then disseminate that information to their constituencies. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Pillay. Quick responses there, Mr. Blakey.
Thank you, Chairperson. Yeah, it will be quick, Chair, because thanks for the comments and the advice. The point is taken about around the pilot. Hence, we're saying that we were looking at now rolling out. So the pilot has been done, but we had to look at it quite critically before rolling out, so that we don't encounter the same problems we encountered at the pilot stage. Just to comment about CETA, correct, is the elephant in the room. And if it was possible for us, I'm sure I'm not talking out of turn here with DG around, but it's a big problem for us. And I don't think it's efficient for us. But unfortunately, the CETA Act, it really ties us up. And I think we could, as government, we could be more creative, and we could save a lot. And unfortunately, we are tied up to the CETA, and the CETA Act, it's designed in such a way that it's difficult. So yes, in terms of the turnaround times, you know, as Honorable Pillay has indicated, we take the point. And in the next, I think at the strat, we will definitely give a detailed breakdown of the queries per ministry, per departments. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I think Honorable Pillay raised it is indeed an elephant in the room. Would have been part of the Home Affairs as well as Honorable McGlure. I kind of missed it in your report as this CETA issue. Doesn't seem that that's an area that you prioritize, because it's a blockage almost for everything. So that would be a very good homework that you need to take up. Maybe just as you conclude, Minister and DG, the discussion here on this matter, if I were to sum it up, and I'm going to sum it up in a very granular way, that says...
Chair, sorry to disrupt you. I've raised my hand just before you sum it up. I just came back, Chair, if you can please indulge.
I didn't see you. Okay. Please go ahead. Welcome back.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, just I've missed the presentation, so I might be asking things that were either covered or not covered, but I had my own questions. Just briefly, Chair, maybe the minister can cover when she summarizes. On the hotline, in fact, let me put my camera on here. On the hotline, I'm just interested if are there any three things, for instance, that the department can tell us that have been resolved through the hotline. People phone with these hotlines, but are there any flagships or anything that you say out of the hotline, here are the three things that we got from community, and this is what was done to resolve it. So that's the first one. Second, Chairperson, I've always been hoping that at some point with this department, we're also going to hear about how are the ministers doing, the performance evaluation of ministers. When do we get to hear this? How are they doing? How are they rated? A to F kind of thing. And how I'm interested in how are ministers performing? I know that the president has got performance appraisals for ministers, but I never get to know how each of these ministers, or in fact, including deputy ministers, are performing. Can we get a sense of when is that going to be brought to the attention of Parliament? Thank you, Chairperson. Thank you for indulging me, Chair.
Thank you. Yes, welcome you back because you were doubling up. It's much appreciated. One of the questions you've asked would have been shared by the minister. I think she can repeat that. There will be no harm, especially on the performance issues. DG and Mr. Blakey, if you would respond to this critical question that Honorable Manyi has raised here. And maybe I can just add to his critical question. So I was saying this is the granular way I want to put it, because in the manner that you have presented this and from the submission and the contributions of members, their advice and suggestion, it does seem like you have a society that is moving and engage in things with a speed of a mirage. You've got a society that is very agile, and then you're asking them to interact with a hotline that is like a donkey cart. It's a tractor in Afrikaans. Do you really expect this society that is at this level to engage with this hotline that is a hotline of the 2000s? There's a big gap, because if you are to address this issue of accessibility, you'd have to understand where society is in relation to these kind of issues. The fact that even today you are still on telephones as part of this hotline, it should not even be called hotline, because society wants to just be on their phone, social media, just WhatsApp and do all of these kind of things. Are you going to be in a position that when you meet next time, in addition to this critical question of Honorable Manyi that you still need to respond to, because that's also my interest. We can't afford to just stay on desktop issues. We have to see the programs that we are dealing with. Are they assisting communities on their daily struggles, or is just a tick the box program that gets to be reported and so on? So if you can just respond to those, DG, Mr. Blakey, and then the minister can come at the end in her response.
Okay, thanks, Chair. I will just respond to one quick issue, and Mr. Blakey will deal with a Honorable Manyi's question. Now, in terms of the modernization of the hotline, I think all of us agree that the hotline cannot continue to work the way it has been working. And one of the offshoot of the modernization program is the inclusion of digital analytics, so that the hotline must also read the messages itself and tell us what is happening. Because we don't have warm bodies to do manual work, and it's outdated to do so. So we are including the digital platform so that on its own can take historical information, current, and make future predictions of what is going to happen, what's likely to happen. So in the presentation, given time, we'll also touch on how we see the hotline of the future, how it's going to work. And I've indicated that as soon as that is done, we'll ask the principals to relaunch it, rebrand it, so that South Africans can appreciate that it's with time. Mr. Blakey, on the question raised by Honorable Manyi.
Thank you, DG, and thanks to Honorable Manyi for the question. Yeah, in terms of the question is are there any three things that you can share with us, Mr. Blakey, on what this hotline has achieved or can talk about? You know, in terms of that, in terms of the day-to-day, I think I've indicated in my presentation, one of the common issues that we deal with relate to social benefits. And these are day-to-day issues that citizens are complaining about, issues of IDs where they are experiencing difficulties in terms of accessing IDs. And by calling the hotline and then escalating those, then they will be assisted. And I indicated that Home Affairs is among the quick departments that we are proud of. Now, for instance, there was this Life Esidimeni, for example. The Life Esidimeni matter was reported to us, and we escalated this to Gauteng province. And further to that, then it became what it became. But just to say that the citizen had an outlet in which to report this matter. Thirdly, for instance, there was the issue of the sewer spillage, in the Vaal. That matter also was reported to the hotline, and it affected a wider community. Even in that instance, we escalated the matter to Gauteng and also to Department of Water and Sanitation. So there are a whole host of other issues that citizens would complain about. And obviously, we don't ourselves, as I indicated in terms of our mandate, we don't ourselves deal and resolve the issue, but will escalate to departments to deal with those. So that's how I would respond to the day-to-day issues that we deal with. But just lastly, Chairperson, in terms of there was an intervention, because we also feel that we cannot only be a desktop that refers, sort of a post office that refers issues. We also got to dirty our hands ourselves. There was an intervention in Limpopo, in Marble Hall, where a paraplegic, a person who has not had a wheelchair, hasn't had a house, where we facilitated intervention for the person to get the house who was neglected. And in the process, we also picked up that there was a center, a disability center, which was in a very, very appalling condition. So not only did we intervene for that particular citizen, but for the community that was using the center. So the intervention does not become, one-pronged. It also looks at societal related issues. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. DG and then Minister.
Chair, I'm covered.
Thank you. Honorable Minister.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson, and thank you once again to the discussions, as I've already said, for the benefit of Honorable Manye, who just came in now. We really appreciate the discussions, the questions, as they definitely assist us to be able to know where to improve. First of all, I think in terms of this hotline, we definitely, as the DG said, we will definitely have to maybe review the model itself, so that the model that we use should then now speak to the issues that you have just raised, but most of all be relevant to the kind of clients, better, lack of a better word, or the electorate that we would like to make sure that they access. So we'll probably still have the part where we continue with the hotline for those that are my age, and then continue with bringing new models that would then now be able to be relevant to the younger generation and people that maybe just want to use more the digital space more than what we have been, or what is currently available now. In terms of the ministerial performance agreement, the system that was used before have been reviewed. So what we actually do now is that the president, the deputy president, and myself, through the facilitation of the people that we have in DPME called outcome facilitators, the outcome facilitators do design priority areas or a framework that has got priority areas as per the APP of different departments, which we believe could then now be used as a performance agreement with the president. We have gone through that particular process with all the ministers, and we interviewed them one by one. I think it took us about 2 months. We are done with that. Performance agreements have been signed between the president and them. And within 6 months' time, we would then now be able to start with or present to the president how far the agreement has actually been able to be institutionalized, and they are working, or how far, if there are any issues, how do we then now assist different ministers to be able to reach those goals that we have set out for ourselves? Because we took out about 3 to 5 priority areas, as much as we still have the other ones that are in the APP for 6 months period. To say with this, we do believe that you then now be able to push the needle, and these things would then now also be able to bring effect to other service delivery projects. Issues such as ramping up the services of police as it relates to CPFs, as it relates to, I'm just giving you an example, also as it relates to how the police station are actually being managed, the issues of the CETA itself, which is one of the reasons that most departments cannot actually perform the way that they are supposed to perform. And we have also been able to look at issues that actually becomes a hampering effect as it relates to infrastructure development that would allow departments such as correctional services to be able to service or do service delivery as expected. So we are done with that. In 6 months' time, I do believe that we will then now be able to give a report, and the president can then now go out to say, this is what I agreed upon with my ministers, and this is how far we are, so that by next year, when we then now close the MTF cycle, then we should then now be able to say that in this 5 years, we've been able to do this, but this last year, the financial year that ended this MTSF cycle, this is what we have been able to push as it relates to the annual performance agreement between the president and the ministers. So having said that, I hope that I've been able to respond. We will also do our best to make sure that part of the reports that we bring will then now also give you how far we are as it relates to the performance of different ministers and ministries. We will first have to request the president, of course, because it's between him and his ministers, but I don't see why he would have a problem with us bringing that here to account to the portfolio committee. So thank you very much, Chairperson.
Okay, thank you. Honorable Mani, is that a follow-up?
Yes, Chairperson.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm just concerned about what I've just heard, Chairperson. My concern is that the minister is talking about yet to be institutionalized what. This is now 2023. This administration started in 2019. To hear in 2023 that there's things that still need to be institutionalized, I'm getting nervous. Can I get clarity on this, Chairperson? Since 2019 to 2023, what actually has been happening around performance management of ministers? Are we saying nothing has been done since then, and now in 2023? I mean, this administration's time is going around May next year. Now in almost December, we're still told about now we're going to see. This sounds wholly unacceptable, Chairperson. What is this? What am I hearing here? Was there no performance management since 2019? Why are we only getting our ducks in a row in 2023? This does not sound like this does not sound satisfactory at all, Chairperson. Which also, by the way, Chairperson, as I sit down, it also is a concern for me to say we also have the NDP, which I know is not being presented today, which it's a common cause that the NDP has also missed all its targets, as it were. So I just don't know that what is it that is being managed in the presidency that is actually on track. Whether I look at NDP is not on track. Whether I look at the signing of performance agreements, it seems like the wheels are off. So I'm not getting a very inspiring report around this, Chairperson. It looks like the center is not holding. Can we get some response, Chairperson, to allay our fears? Right now, it looks like the center is not holding. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Mani. I'm going to ask the Minister to do a quick response, and perhaps we should also be taking this issue as an issue that is ongoing and even part of our strat plan. For now, I'm going to ask to hold back on the NDP. We're going to want to go into details on that one, Honorable Mani. Just the response, a further response on the performance issues. If you can come back, Minister. Also understand as well that if you have a cabinet that is set up in March this year, it means those that would have had a response or performance before that, you're almost like starting with a new team. But let me leave that to the Minister to answer. Honorable Minister.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson. Maybe I should have used a better language, not necessarily institutionalization. Performance management have been done before. And but the way it was done, we saw that it is not necessarily yielding the fruits that the president would like to see. It is for this reason that this year we brought in a new system of doing performance management, where we do physical interviews between the president and the ministers, different ministers, supported by ourselves. Therefore, the implementation, not the institution, the implementation process, that's what we're saying, that we are now busy as ourselves. The performance management or the performance agreement between the president and the ministers is done, is finished. We've facilitated that. And as I said, we've changed it from what it used to be from 2019. Now, the new one that we're doing comes directly from us as we look at the APP and choose what we believe could be able to push the needle. It is for this reason that we are saying, we said that we will then now be able to sit down with ministers and the president in a 6-month period to discuss the progress made or the progress that's not made. We do believe that there will be progress made. If progress is not made, then that's when I guess that the whip will start being used to be able to say, but this is what we agreed with you upon, and we told you in 6 months' time, we want you to account. If you can't account, it means there is a problem. How do we deal with it? So that's what I was trying to say. We have changed the way things were done before. It's no longer going to be done annually. Now it's going to be done in a 6-month period, and it will be a physical agreement or assessment that would be done with us supporting the president. I would just like to say this without getting deep into the NDP thing. Today we will be launching the 10-year review. And I do believe that we will come back to you to report to you, and then we can engage with it so that we can know how do we move forward in making sure that the NDP reaches its goals. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Unfortunately, I see Honorable Mani has been kicked out, but I think the response is welcome. Honorable members, I think that's where we're going to leave it in terms of these 2 items that we're dealing with today. Maybe before we conclude, it's already past 12, just from my side, just to indicate to honorable members, we had planned to start this committee properly. So this issue of the strategic planning workshop is still critical. We were hoping to do it in 2 days following each other, but this term is quite a very short term. By the 23rd of September, we'll be rising. So we're not able to have it 2 days following each other. We're trying to, and I think we're succeeding. We're going to be breaking it up. For example, we'll likely say next Friday, instead of a committee meeting, we have a planning session, and then another day that would have to conclude that, so that we have a good platform to set ourselves up and attend to all of the issues that we must empty our heads as a committee and from the ministry about what's on the table, and then we rework that menu in a manner that it must suit us. So that strat plan is still in our radar, and during the course of the few days, we'll indicate to you exactly the logistics around that. So just wanted to make that point that we're not going to do away with that. It's important that we attend to it in order to be on the same page, all of us, as we do our work. That's me really by way of just making that important announcement. If there's nothing else, colleagues, I want to thank all of you for your contributions in this very first meeting of this portfolio committee. Thank the minister with your team for the presentations and the work and the engagement. Hopefully you are taking away a lot of the homework that would have been placed here by members about the kind of things that we'd like to see. We will be working together from now on, and we are also going to develop our own program as the committee. The issue of the bill is very critical. It will be our priority in the program so that we get done with that in this 6th term, not in any other term. Thank you, colleagues. Nomakosa, is there anything you want to say?
No, Chairperson, you have said it all.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, colleagues. The meeting is now adjourned.
Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you.
Long live the chair. Long live the chair.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you.
Recording stopped.